Hello, everyone. Hello, partner.
Hello, my love.
So, reflect and reset your favorite show that nothing stops our show, even COVID 19. Incredible. Because we are very focused on our mission. And our mission is to provide information that is valuable to you and your family. And, partner, how are you feeling?
I'm good. As you notice, I'm in my office, so I get to come back to work. I'm very excited. I got to work with the bookkeeper and Susanna today, so got a lot done. It feels great to be back. Really excited.
Well,
And I know you
I
missed
am
me. Guess
really
what?
happy. I
Yeah,
miss you desperately. It's
I know.
definitely it's definitely refreshing to have you here with me, and we have a great show today. But before we go and bring our guests, we want to talk about number one. I want to thank Henry Ramos from
Mm-hmm.
Deadline TV, who is providing this production, this amazing production. He came just at the right time. So thank you, Henry, for really helping us and being so dedicated. And then we want to go over the numbers that Gina, over 2 million people are in the world are infected with this virus. We have over 134,000 deaths and 508 people recovered. So we still have a lot of people infected. And in the
There's still
United States,
mm-hmm.
yeah, so in the United States, we have over 641,000 people that have been infected in 28,000, over 28,000 deaths. It's terrible. The thing that is scary for me when I look at these numbers is that when you add the 28,000 plus the 47,000 that have recovered, there's a lot of people still
Still
infected.
infected. You know,
And
the beautiful thing about what's happening now is, my daughter's a nurse. As everyone knows, my daughter's a nurse at the Children's Hospital, and what they're seeing more people leaving the hospital now. And I was actually talking to Dr. Baccelleri today, and what they do is when someone gets extubated or leaves the hospital, they play, the New York in New York, they play it throughout the hallways, knowing that somebody's either leaving the hospital or they got the respiratory tube out. So it was pretty exciting. They were so excited to share the video. So that was so they're seeing that it's slowing down in the
going down.
hospitals, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. We just
Yeah.
have to make sure that no one gets reinfected, that there isn't a reinfection that could happen. But it's anyone's guess at this point. This is a scary
There
time.
was, questioning. I was watching CNN yesterday, and they were questioning that in South Korea that they're looking at people that are being reinfected. But I
Yep.
was talking to Dr. Macellari today, and what he said is not like they're what he's thinking. He said is that it's not that they're getting sick again; is that they're showing positive for the virus again. So there's a lot of confusion. As we know, this is so new. This is a virus that nobody knows much about it, so that is why it's such a challenge. But we know, Gina, that with this virus, there's been so much anxiety. I talked about at one of our show. I say the virus attacks your mind. It sort of attacked all of our minds before it actually attacks our body. So, with
Yeah.
that in mind, GC, let's bring our guests today.
Yes. So I get the special pleasure of introducing our guest, who happens to be Maria's niece. So Kimberly
Yes.
Alba is a doctor of clinical psychology, and we're going to talk a little bit about how people are dealing with anxiety through this whole trauma. Not only anxiety of being confined and living the way that we have to live, which is so out of the norm, but what happens when you lose a family member? What happens that you can't be by their side when they're dying? And it's a horrible thought. So how people are getting through it. So first, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, Kimberly, and then this way we can get right into all of this.
Of course. Thank you for that introduction, Gina. It's so nice to see you and see you doing so well and healthy. So I am a psychologist. I work at a major medical center here in New York, where I do psychotherapy and diagnostic evaluations with children, adolescents, and families. I also work with some adults, primarily exposed to complex trauma and dealing with depression, anxiety, and deficits of attention and developmental delays. During this time, our work has definitely shifted to a telehealth perspective where we're offering our services all via this modality, which is nice to have that option for our families. I also do a lot of supervision and training at the hospital since it is a research and training hospital, so that's a major part of our roles there as staff.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, as you know, I am extremely proud of you, and you are the first doctor in our family. And it was incredible when you graduated, but for now, even to have you in my shows is actually very surreal. Like I'm talking to Dr. Alba. It's awesome. And I congratulated on the Spanish show that we did. I congratulated my brother and his wife, who I adore, your mother, for the tremendous work that they did with you. And one of the things that I'm very proud of, I have to say, and I said it at the other show, is the fact that you are fully bilingual and you're able to help our Latino community. So as a Latina that is trying to really hard to make an impact in our Latino community, for me, it is such an honor that my niece is able to be fully bilingual and really focus on helping that community from Washington Heights, which is where your father and I came to the United States when we first arrived here. So it's pretty amazing. So wanted to share that. That being said, um, I want we want you to talk about anxiety. Like, how do we deal with the anxiety that everyone in the world is dealing with of so much loss, with your job, loss with businesses,
Right.
loss with family members. I mean, there's so much void right now. How do we deal with anxiety?
Yeah. Um, Yeah, Maria, I think you just really framed it in the way I'm thinking of this anxiety because it really is loss and trauma what we're experiencing, right? When I think anxiety, I think almost like perceived danger where there isn't, right? And there actually is danger right now. So I think that loss framework that you just described and that trauma framework that Gina described earlier is really how I'm thinking of what's happening right now. And so when I think of COVID-19 and the trauma and loss that's coming with that, I think of the first step, and at the core of this comes a lot of radical acceptance. Radical acceptance is a term we throw around a lot in psychology, especially in dialectical behavior therapy, that speaks to accepting the things we cannot control, right? And allowing ourselves to feel all of the emotions that come with that loss of control. So I do very much believe that that's step one in coping with anxiety regarding COVID, or coping with the loss and grief regarding COVID, is accept that there is a situation happening globally to us that we cannot control. And just acknowledging and labeling all of the feelings that come with that, right? Comes sadness, comes grief, comes anxiety, comes anger, comes frustration. And once we allow space for ourselves to acknowledge that, then we can channel our energy into places where we can control and can gain some sense of agency. So from that aspect, I think that our routines are crucial right now. What we make of our routines are really important in coping with our anxiety. And when I think of our routines, I think of also just the way we're taking care of ourselves physically is super important. So food is your mood. What you eat will impact how you feel. So I talk a lot about with my patients the importance of using balanced meals as a way of preventing emotional vulnerability and anxiety, right? Making sure that we're not overeating or undereating. Also, balanced sleep right now is crucial. And it's so difficult when you're having these worry thoughts come up, right? So, using our sleep as a rest period and also finding techniques that we'll go over in a bit of grounding techniques that might help you relax and get appropriate sleep. Right now, Headspace, the app, is free for all New Yorkers, and it's available in English and Spanish. And it has meditation for nighttime and also meditations, like daily meditations, and they have like different areas of, like stress related to work, stress related to family. Like you can pick any which one of the meditations you would find most helpful to you. And I've found that personally helpful for myself during this. Another big part of the routine is exercise. And Thea and Gina, I know that you are two women who practice a lot of exercise, and exercise is super important right now to combat anxiety. When we exercise, our brain literally produces endorphins that make us feel feelings of happiness afterwards, and that combat stress, anxiety, and depression. So if we're moving our bodies, and I say this, it just needs to be 30 minutes a day, please do. It really does help. And if you can incorporate that into your routine, it combats many of these like emotionally vulnerable moments that we're going to have throughout the day. I think another big part of the routine, right, is if you're working from home, is definitely picking a space where your work to, and not traveling throughout your home, because then it's harder to contain the work boundaries. There's also importance of like checking in if you have children, what that looks like during the day, and making a routine of that. I mean, we can do a whole other show on managing stress related to parenting during this time. But I think being mindful of that within your daily routine is super important. And then I think there's this piece of talking about like building mastery that's really important during this time. I think it's hard given that everything I just said that you have to manage, but it's also important for us to find something that we can focus our attention into and see progress on throughout this time. And so maybe that looks like starting a project at home, organizing something that you've been wanting to organize, focusing on cooking. I know I've been doing that, and it's felt really good to see myself progress in some meals. So I'm building
healthy meals.
Yes, building mastery in that way, right? Like letting ourselves to feel a little bit like a little sense of accomplishment during this time where we cannot control what's happening outside, right? And so if we can try to do that within the boundaries of our home, I think that it will definitely help combat anxiety. So I wanted to speak to the idea of a routine. I know I just said a lot. Maybe you two have examples of how your routine helps you. I think that would be helpful to share too.
Can I start with that? Let me start with that because you have a routine. And you know what here very funny is that I finally got myself into an exercise routine before this happened, working with a trainer 3 times a week, and really started feeling good. But it's very hard for me to self-motivate. And plus I don't live in a big house. I'm in an apartment. So it's, and I know it should be easy, but I can understand what people go through because it's not easy. It's not easy to get yourself up and moving and to, step outside of the norm because you're stuck in the house. But, now, yes, the weather's nicer and you can get out and I do long walks with my dogs and stuff like that, but I'm not doing the heavy lifting that I was doing with my trainer. And it's hard for me to motivate. It's hard for me to get back into it. So anxiety for me is that my body was changing to such a good extent, and now I'm seeing it revert back because of sheer laziness. And it's very hard when you're stuck in the house. And even my eating is great. I'm not drinking, especially because I've been sick, but I'm not drinking at all, really. And so I'm maintaining my weight, but you change your whole body. It's terrible. But Maria, I don't even want to go to Maria because she gets up, she goes running, she gets up at 5 a.m., she does her exercise, it's like she meditates. I'm like, okay, how perfect can somebody be?
I do have to say, number one, first, I want to say, Adam, thank you, Adam Handler, for watching us. And anxiety, it's something that we all have dealt with. I can tell you that I dealt with anxiety for 15 years of my life. So you're seeing the product of those daily deposits that Kimberly's talking about. It's been a lot of work. This has been a journey that's been difficult, and people get to see the way that I am now, but it's been a journey. I am very structured, and I do have those routines that are critical for me, they're critical. I can tell you that this week I actually did a quick video that I didn't post, but I had a really hard day at work. Gina, you'll know what day that is. And I went home and it was like 7 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I could not see anything else that I needed to do more than just do a really hard workout. I picked Insanity, Shanti Pure Cardio, the hardest workout. It's like 35 minutes of pure hell. And I knew I needed it. I was like, I needed to let the rage out. I was angry. I was frustrated. I was like, enough. I couldn't take it. And I went in and gave it all and left it all on the floor of my little gym in the back of my garage. And when I was done, I was like, whoa, ha, what a
You felt better.
relief. I could think straight. I was able to center myself. And then to top it off, I finished it off with the meditation. So it is hard to get the habits, but you got to start
You're
with
not
little
normal.
habits.
You're not
What?
normal. You're not normal, my
I
love.
I went
I
through all this struggle.
I do want to say we have to do what works for us, right? That's something I say too, right? Maybe, doing a hard hit cardio Shanti workout is not what you're into, and maybe doing a couple of stretches, 15 minutes is what works for you. I mean, we have to do what works during this time, and exercise can be it's a large variety of things that you can do. And Gina, just to give you some validation, you were ill. I mean, I don't think that's laziness, right? You were, you were recovering and taking care of your body, and I think that's a different way of combating anxiety, right?
Yeah,
Is
I'm a little
managing.
lazy. It's okay.
Kimberly,
We all know
one
that.
thing, yeah, one thing that I know I had to adjust was to sleep more, and I am sleeping more, and it was a mental thing as well because geez, you know that I don't, I haven't been sleeping enough, but that's just the way that I am. But I realized that in order to really have a good immune system and be healthy mentally and physically at this time, I need to get more sleep. But I've had to adjust mentally and force myself to actually sleep more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Sleep is crucial, and I know you're someone that really benefits from even just short like sleep spurts, right? So I
yeah.
think again, doing what works, and also in building our immunity, I think increasing our sleep is important, right? Because if there's like research that shows if you're not sleeping well, then you're engaging in unhealthy eating behaviors, and then that impacts your mood, and then it's like a spiral effect into depression and anxiety. So sleep is really important, and I think this is a great time to practice trying to fall asleep and wake up at a reasonable time. Just one more thing around routines. My friend actually, and she's a colleague, she's also a psychologist, sent me an article about how when we are going through a trauma and we have a routine, literally the parts of our brains that light up during the trauma don't light up as we're engaging in our routine, because that part of our brain, the emotion part, isn't activated. The frontal part isn't activated because we don't really have to think about what to do, and we don't really have to engage in any problem solving like, oh, I'm going to do this in the next hour or this. which actually causes more exhaustion. So actually having a routine and structure can really help you right now. It actually limits the activity in your brain. You don't have to make as many choices, and it provides some sense of stability and power for you. So I just wanted to say that little piece about the importance of a routine.
So, Kimberly, let's talk about grief. Um,
Yeah.
Mhm.
it, that is really, Gina, I didn't get a chance to tell you, but I was talking to Dr. Middleton. He lost his grandfather, and it wasn't to COVID-19. He died, he was older and 93 years old. And he was saying he died alone. And at the funeral, only 10 people could be there. And he said that there was almost like a security guard saying that you need to keep the 6 feet distance. And this is family. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody had to wear a mask. He's like, we couldn't hug each other.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't hug my father and my mother. And he's like, it's crazy. And
Yeah.
they had to pick 10 people to go. So this is a major thing that we haven't experienced. So how do people deal with this loss?
I wish I had the answer to that. I think I can help with coping with the sadness that comes with this. I just noticed myself feeling so sad as you were describing that, because it's so unnatural to not get the support from our loved ones, to not have physical touch, which can be so soothing, right? During when we're feeling sad or upset or dysregulated. And then to not have the usual memorials that we have to process the loss of someone, or the chance to say goodbye to someone. So I think for those of you that are in those positions, I think definitely allowing yourself space to feel all the emotions that come with that, because I noticed myself feeling sad, but also angry and frustrated at the situation, and then giving yourself increasing your social support during this time, which whatever way that looks like, right? If that means reaching out to your closest friends and letting them know that you need check-ins, making that happen, because it's also harder to check in with people when we're feeling down and sad, or coping with grief. I think another really important part is, because we're not having these services, how can we adapt now virtually? And I think we have access to these formats that can be really great in doing some of that memorialization that we're not getting to do with our loved ones, right? And having these virtual formats as ways of remembering loved ones, or using it as a memorial to share memories of that loved one, or share the feelings that are coming up with losing that loved one. We can still be connected at a distance. And I think that that's really the buffer with this. I think with any trauma and with any loss, it's important to just acknowledge how we're feeling and begin to process it, right? I think when we're in that stage of denial, it hits us really hard later on. And so in order to combat that, I think what's really the main thing here is to give ourselves space to process, and really using our social supports in this new virtual format. With not being able to say goodbye, I don't even know what to say to that. I think that's such a tough
Yeah.
situation, and I wonder if there's ways. I mean, the first thing that came to mind was just, what would you say to that loved one? Write it down in a letter, read it to them. I know that that's not the same as actually being there, but it's just, I can't even think of how to make up for that, because that's another loss, right? On top of the loss, it's like the loss of not
Yeah.
being able to say goodbye. So I think that that's going to come with a lot of just processing and sitting in our emotions and seeking support. There are also so
Yeah.
many hotlines right now that we can use for support from professionals during this time. I don't know if we can show them a little here. So we have the National Prevention Hotline. Also, if you're in a situation of domestic violence or not feeling safe at home, there's that hotline, the sexual assault hotline. There's also a hotline for parents who need help with their children and problem solving routines and academic supports, and then the health management for individuals who are struggling with substance use recovery. So I think another important thing is using those outlets that our state has instilled to our benefit during these times of grief and sadness.
Kimberly, I know when we did the show, we went through an exercise, and unfortunately, we're running out of time. But do you think you can take us through that exercise in 1 minute? Or two? Or
Or
two?
two.
Yeah.
I can definitely try. So I spoke to the idea of grounding, and grounding is basically practicing mindfulness and coming in touch with our bodies and just acknowledging what thoughts are coming up, what emotions are coming up, and what physiological sensations are coming up. So if we can just have us sit, I mean, if you could just please sit in your chair and put both feet on the ground, and make sure that your hands are also placed on a flat surface. And then maybe when you feel comfortable, close your eyes or focus on one part of the room if that feels better to you. And then just notice your breathing at this moment. Notice what thoughts, emotions are coming up for you as you sit with your breathing and your body. Now I want you to think about a memory, a fond memory that you have with a loved one prior to COVID-19. I want you to visualize that memory. See it in its entirety. Notice the colors, the people, your surroundings, if you're indoor or outdoors. Now I want you to notice what you smell in this memory, what scents are coming up for you. And bring your attention to what you hear in this memory. Are there sounds? Do you hear voices? Maybe there's nature or music, depending on where you are. And then I really want you to embrace the sensation of touch. And maybe grab onto this loved one that you're sharing this memory with. Give them a hug. Maybe you want to touch the surroundings that you're in. And then I want you to focus on the sensation of taste. And maybe there's something in this memory that you can taste and relive. Again, noticing your breathing in this moment. Noticing thoughts, emotions that are coming up. And also noticing how your body's responding. Is it tensing? Is it relaxing? Now I want you to quickly say goodbye to all of these sensations we just went through. You can revisit them whenever you want. Maybe you can say goodbye to the loved ones in this memory. And when you're ready, maybe by wiggling your toes, moving your hands, you can bring yourself back into this room.
That's awesome.
That's
And
better.
you know what? You really feel yourself there. When you listen to your voice and you go through the motion, I felt myself in my happy place with the people I love.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. That's really great.
I love that technique. I have to say, it's become one of my favorite techniques because
Great.
since we did it on that Monday, Friday when we did our show, I was like, oh my God, I heard somebody else go through a similar technique, and I'm like, I love it. Like you could really stop as everything is going on and just go back place. So, Kimberly, it was such a pleasure. We'll definitely bring you back because there's going to be many, like we talked about parenting. Like, how do
Mm-hmm.
you deal parenting? How do you deal with, I have to say something, how do you deal with someone that is in your house now, your spouse or significant other, that you don't even like, that you're not
Right.
even happy with? You know how many people have to now live together, even if they don't like each other? So that's
Mhm.
going to be another show because I
That's a
think
whole
that is, yeah.
That should be an
But
hour
if
show.
you are, Gina, but if you are with a person, you could actually go to a happy place. Just go to another
And
room.
then- Bye. Yeah, go in another room and just go to my happy place.
So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us again and again. And
Yep.
I'm very proud of you. You were a
I'm
fine
proud of you
doctor.
too.
Dr. Ali.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
And
you
So,
for
listen,
having
quick,
me.
one thing off the cuff, real fast. This beautiful girl is single.
Oh my
So
gosh.
all that watchers out there, look how beautiful she is. You have to go through me first. You have to go through me and her aunt first before anyone can go near her.
I love it. I love my partner. We are just authentic,
Very
authentically open.
authentic, very authentic people. Also combats anxiety, being authentic to her feelings and her thoughts. Thank you, Gina.
We love you. We love you.
I
So
love you
Thank
we
both
can't
you.
wait
very
to have you back.
Thank you for
So
having me.
I want to say thank you to all of you that are following, that are watching us. Please make sure that you share our show, and
Yeah.
and also if you like us, just give us a like, and
Yeah.
also let us know what you don't like and what you like, so that we can bring more of what you like, because
Oh,
we
that was
are here for you, right, partner?
it. Make sure to like
That's
us.
yours. Yes.
We'll see you next week. Mwah. Oh, wait. What about Henry? Let's say one more. Let's
Oh,
shout out to Henry Ramos.
yep.
So a shout
Kimberly,
out.
bye
Thank you,
bye.
TV. Take care. Bye, Kim.
Bye.